Poor black boy gives food to a homeless old man, not knowing he's a millionaire. Why would a poor teenager sharing food with a homeless man lead to unraveling a millionaire's disappearance? Ethan's kindness sparks a search for the man's identity, but the truly shocking twist reveals the homeless man's own brother deliberately orchestrated his vanishing to steal his fortune. Subscribe, like, and listen now to hear this incredible story of compassion and conspiracy. The numbers, Ethan. The numbers on a lake house. The old man's voice was a rough whisper, his eyes, usually clouded with confusion, suddenly sharp with a fleeting, desperate lucidity. Henry gripped Ethan's arm, his knuckles white, his gaze fixed on something far beyond the cluttered alley behind Mama's kitchen, where Ethan usually brought him food. He changed them. Lockbox. Victor. Ethan froze, a half-eaten sandwich paused midair. Henry, the gentle, lost soul he'd befriended months ago, the man who barely remembered his own name, was suddenly speaking of specific betrayals, of hidden things. Victor? Lockbox? Lake house. These were fragments Ethan hadn't heard before amidst Henry's usual disjointed murmurs about big desks and lost keys. Henry, what numbers? Who's Victor? Ethan asked gently, trying to hold the old man's fleeting focus. But the spark faded as quickly as it appeared. Henry blinked, his eyes clouding over again. He looked down at his hand, gripping Ethan's arm, as if surprised to find it there, then released it, shuffling his worn-out shoes. Cold, he muttered, pulling his tattered coat tighter. Need more bread. Ethan helped Henry settle back onto the makeshift bed of flattened cardboard boxes he'd arranged in a sheltered alcove, covering him with a thicker blanket he'd salvaged. But the old man's words echoed in his mind, dissonant and sharp. Victor changed the numbers. It felt specific, accusatory. For months, Ethan had simply seen Henry as a kind, but deeply confused homeless man needing care. Now, a sliver of doubt, a hint of something more complex and potentially sinister, pierced through his simple compassion. What past life did Henry truly belong to? And who was Victor? The sudden, intense clarity in Henry's eyes, followed by the immediate retreat into fog, left Ethan standing in the chilly Chicago air, a disturbing question hanging heavy around him. Who was the old man he shared his bread with? Ethan Brooks navigated the gritty landscape of his South Side Chicago neighborhood with a quiet resilience that belied his 14 years. Life wasn't easy. His single mother worked 2 jobs to keep their small apartment afloat, and Ethan pitched in, working after-school shifts bussing tables and washing dishes at Mama's Kitchen, a beloved local diner serving up soul food and community gossip. Despite the hardships, Ethan possessed an innate kindness, instilled by his mother's unwavering principle. You share what you have, especially with those who have less. He was observant, smart, quick with numbers from helping Mama Rosa cash out, and possessed a street sense honed by necessity. His dream was simple: finish high school, maybe find a scholarship, get a tech job, and help his mom finally catch a break. His world was one of concrete and chain-link fences, vibrant murals splashed on brick walls, the rumble of the L train overhead, and the constant hustle for survival. It was a community that looked out for its own, but also one where vulnerability was easily exploited. Henry entered Ethan's world on a bitter winter night several months prior. Ethan, taking out the trash after closing, found the old man huddled near the dumpsters, shivering violently, his clothes thin and ragged, his eyes vacant with confusion. Moved by pity, Ethan brought him inside the warm kitchen, offering hot soup and bread. Henry ate ravenously but could barely speak, muttering disconnected phrases about buildings, water, lost, papers. He didn't know his name, where he came from, or how he'd ended up there. From that night on, Ethan made Henry his unofficial responsibility. He persuaded Mama Rosa to let Henry sleep occasionally in the dry, relatively warm back storeroom. He brought him leftovers from the diner each night, mended tears in his coat with clumsy stitches, listened patiently to his fragmented stories, piecing together glimpses of a former life, tailored suits, important meetings, a son named William, a house by a lake. Ethan simply called him Mr. Henry, offering consistent kindness and a measure of safety in a world that had discarded him. He felt a strange kinship with the old man's loneliness, a shared sense of being somewhat adrift. Ethan never considered Henry's past might involve wealth or power. In his neighborhood, homelessness was often just a paycheck or a health crisis away. He saw Henry as someone who had fallen through the cracks, someone forgotten. The possibility of a connection to mansions and boardrooms seemed fantastical, utterly removed from the reality of Mama's kitchen and the alleyway where Henry sought refuge. Ethan's world was about making rent, getting homework done, and ensuring Mr. Henry had something warm to eat, grounded, immediate concerns far removed from the complex histories of missing millionaires. The shift began subtly. Weeks after Henry's lucid outburst about Victor and numbers, Ethan noticed Henry seemed slightly more present some days. Prompted by Ethan's patient listening, fragments of memory surfaced more frequently, often related to sensory details. The smell of coffee reminded him of early meetings. The sight of Lake Michigan from a bus window triggered murmurs about a boat and his boy William. Ethan continued his routine, bringing food, offering companionship, not pushing, simply being there. Then came the flyer, tacked onto a community notice board near the diner. Half hidden beneath pizza coupons and babysitting ads was a professionally printed missing person notice. The face staring out from the slightly weathered paper was instantly recognizable. Though younger, sharper, wearing an expensive suit, it was Henry. The text identified him as Henry Langston, founder of Langston Realty, missing for 3 years following a serious car accident resulting in traumatic brain injury and severe amnesia. A substantial reward was offered for information leading to his safe return, with a contact number for his son, William Langston. This was the inciting incident. Ethan stared at the flyer, the pieces clicking into place with dizzying speed. His homeless friend, Mr. Henry, wasn't just forgotten. He was a missing millionaire. Langston Realty. Ethan recognized the name from gleaming downtown skyscrapers, a world away from his neighborhood. The car accident explained the amnesia, the confusion. Ethan's first reaction was a complex wave of shock, disbelief, and an odd sense of validation. Henry's fragmented talk of wealth wasn't delusion. This was followed immediately by concern. Henry was vulnerable. What would happen if his wealthy family suddenly reappeared? Would they care for him properly or see him as an embarrassment? Would this William be kind? He felt fiercely protective of the old man he'd come to care for. He also felt a pang of guilt. Should he have realized sooner? Should he call a number? His initial goal became clear: verify this information and, if true, ensure Henry was reunited with a family that would genuinely care for him, not just reclaim an asset. He hesitated for a day, wrestling with the decision, watching Henry carefully, trying to gauge his well-being. Finally, driven by the hope that Henry deserved better than an alleyway existence, Ethan pocketed the flyer and used the phone at Mama's kitchen during a quiet moment. He called the number, his heart pounding. He explained, cautiously, that he knew a man matching the description, a kind but confused homeless man he called Henry, who frequented the area near the diner. He described Henry's condition, his fragmented memories. The voice on the other end, William Langston, sounded initially skeptical, wary of potential scams, but Ethan's detailed, compassionate description of Henry's mannerisms and specific phrases Henry used, like mentioning the boat on the lake, seemed to convince him. William's voice cracked with emotion as he agreed to come immediately, thanking Ethan profusely. Ethan hung up, a knot of anxiety in his stomach. He had set something significant in motion. His simple act of kindness had potentially bridged two vastly different worlds. His immediate plan was simple: prepare Henry gently, stay by his side when William arrived, and ensure his friend wasn't frightened or overwhelmed by the sudden upheaval. He just hoped he was doing the right thing. William Langston arrived within the hour, driving not a flashy sports car, but a practical sedan, his expensive suit slightly rumpled, his eyes filled with anxious hope. Ethan led him to the alley alcove where Henry was resting. The reunion was poignant, but confusing for Henry. He didn't fully recognize William, though he seemed calmed by William's gentle voice and familiar presence. Reaching out tentatively to touch William's face, murmuring, "My boy." William, tears streaming down his face, confirmed Henry was his father, thanking Ethan repeatedly with choked emotion. Over the next few days, a new routine began. William arranged for Henry to be admitted to a private neurological clinic specializing in memory care, ensuring he received top-notch medical evaluation and therapy. William visited daily, bringing old family photos, playing music Henry once loved, patiently rebuilding connections. He expressed profound gratitude to Ethan, offering a substantial reward. Ethan firmly but politely declined. "He's my friend, Mr. Langston. Just take good care of him." Impressed by Ethan's sincerity and maturity, William insisted on staying in touch, setting up a fund to cover Ethan's work hours at the diner so he could visit Henry at the clinic without financial strain, an offer Ethan gratefully accepted. The first major complication arrived in the form of Victor Langston, Henry's younger brother and the current CEO of Langston Realty. Alerted by William about Henry being found, Victor appeared at the clinic, radiating feigned relief and fraternal concern. He embraced Henry, who recoiled slightly, praised William's diligence, and thanked Ethan with a smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. Ethan, present during the visit, felt an immediate, instinctive distrust. Victor's questions seemed less focused on Henry's well-being and more on gauging his level of memory recovery. He repeatedly emphasized the difficult road ahead, the permanence of such injuries, and the wisdom of Henry remaining in specialized care indefinitely, subtly undermining William's hope for significant recovery. Henry, despite his confusion, reacted negatively to Victor's presence, becoming agitated, repeatedly murmuring, "No, Victor, stay away." This visible reaction strengthened the bond between William and Ethan, who shared their unease about Victor later. "My uncle always seemed supportive," William admitted, troubled, "but seeing him with Dad now, something feels wrong. Dad was always wary of his ambition." Ethan recounted Henry's lucid moment in the alley, whispering, "Victor changed the numbers. Locked box." This spurred William to action. He started asking pointed questions within Langston Realty about the company's status immediately after Henry's accident. He met resistance. Financial reports were conveniently archived. Key personnel Victor had installed were evasive. William realized Victor had solidified control far more completely than he'd imagined. Victor, sensing William's shift from grateful son to suspicious investigator, began his countermoves. Subtle rumors started circulating among the Langston social circle and even reached Ethan's neighborhood via anonymous online posts questioning the circumstances of Henry being found, insinuating Ethan might have been exploiting Henry or even delaying contacting the family for personal gain. Ethan's mother faced pointed questions from neighbors. The pressure was designed to isolate Ethan and drive a wedge between him and William, while painting Victor as the concerned, responsible family member. The battle lines were being drawn, with Ethan, William, and the slowly recovering Henry on one side, and the calculating Victor Langston on the other. The suspicions about Victor Langston gnawed at William. Ethan's recounting of Henry's fragmented words, Victor changed the numbers. Locked box echoed in his mind. Coupled with Victor's dismissive attitude towards Henry's potential recovery and the resistance William faced when inquiring about company affairs from the time of Henry's disappearance, a disturbing picture began to form. Driven by a growing sense of urgency, William decided to investigate his father's most private space. The old, custom-built safe hidden behind a false bookshelf in the study of the Langston family's lakefront estate, a home Victor had mostly kept closed up since the accident, citing painful memories. Using a combination only he and his father knew, a fail-safe Henry had insisted upon years ago, distrusting even then, William opened the heavy door. Inside, amongst old property deeds and investment certificates, was not just one surprise, but two. First, tucked away in a hidden compartment, was Henry Langston's original, notarized last will and testament. Dated shortly before the accident, it starkly contradicted the will Victor had filed 3 years prior. The original document left the controlling interest, 70%, of Langston Realty jointly to William and a charitable foundation Henry planned to establish, with Victor receiving a smaller, though still significant, percentage and a generous lifetime stipend. The will Victor had filed, however, named Victor as the primary beneficiary and executor, granting him near total control, citing Henry's supposed disillusionment with William's non-business career path. The forgery was blatant now that the original was found. Second, beneath the will, William found a small, leather-bound journal. It was Henry's personal log, something William hadn't known existed. The final entries, dated in the weeks leading up to the accident, were chilling. Henry detailed his growing concerns about Victor's reckless financial strategies within the company, suspecting him of diverting funds and misrepresenting earnings, cooking the books. He wrote about discrepancies he'd found, the numbers Victor tried to explain away. The last entry read, "Confronting Victor tomorrow. Must protect the company's integrity. Must protect William's legacy. Have put original papers in the safe. Trust no one else." This was the turning point. The journal entries, combined with the original will, provided irrefutable proof of Victor's motive. He hadn't just passively benefited from Henry's accident and amnesia. He had a powerful reason to want Henry incapacitated or gone before that confrontation could happen. William now believed Victor hadn't just abandoned Henry. He had orchestrated his disappearance after the accident, ensuring the incriminating journal and will remain hidden, allowing him to file the forged will and seize control. The possibility that Victor might have even had a hand in the accident itself became a terrifying, unavoidable thought. William immediately shared his findings with Ethan and Clara Monroe, the lawyer William had retained for Henry's affairs. The goal shifted dramatically. This was no longer just about Henry's recovery or challenging Victor's control. It was about exposing massive fraud, forgery, and potentially conspiracy related to Henry's accident and disappearance. They needed to prove Victor's actions legally. Point of no return. William authorized Clara to hire forensic accountants to audit Langston Realty, specifically looking for the financial manipulation Henry hinted at, and tasked Marcus Thorne, the PI Ethan's reward money had allowed William to retain, to investigate Victor's actions immediately following the accident 3 years ago. They were no longer just suspicious. They were actively building a criminal case against Victor Langston. The discovery of the original will and Henry's journal galvanized William and Ethan, but also put them on high alert. They knew Victor Langston wouldn't relinquish control easily and would fight dirty if he felt threatened. Their strategy became multifaceted: protect Henry, gather irrefutable evidence against Victor, and shield Ethan and his mother from the inevitable backlash. William moved Henry to a different, more secure wing of the medical facility with restricted access, citing privacy concerns. He focused on Henry's recovery, spending hours talking with him, showing him photos, playing familiar music. Slowly, painstakingly, Henry's memory showed flickers of improvement. He began consistently recognizing William, asking about his architectural projects, even recalling specific details about the lake house mentioned in his journal. Ethan visited regularly, bringing treats from Mama's kitchen, his easy, non-demanding presence seeming to soothe Henry. During one visit, while looking at Ethan's simple drawing of them sharing bread, Henry murmured, "Victor Hospital told me stay away, William, not safe yet." Ethan, heart pounding, discreetly recorded Henry's fragmented recollection on his phone, the first potential piece of direct testimony about Victor's actions post-accident. Meanwhile, the forensic accountants began their audit of Langston Realty, immediately encountering obstacles. Victor, alerted by internal triggers about the deep dive into past financials, stonewalled, claiming records were archived, missing, or protected by confidentiality clauses. He painted William's efforts as disruptive and emotionally driven. Clara Monroe prepared legal motions to compel access, citing William's rights as beneficiary under the original will, a copy of which she strategically filed with the court, putting Victor on official notice. Marcus Thorne's investigation into the aftermath of the accident bore fruit. He tracked down hospital transfer records, showing Victor had indeed moved Henry from the initial trauma center to a less reputable, long-term care facility in another state known for minimal oversight, paying cash for the transfer via a third-party security consultant with a shady background. Thorne also found evidence Victor had actively suppressed updates on Henry's condition from reaching William 3 years ago, claiming Henry needed absolute quiet and minimal contact. Victor, feeling the walls closing in, unleashed his smear campaign with full force. Tabloid articles appeared, filled with anonymous quotes portraying Ethan as a manipulative street kid exploiting a vulnerable old man, and William as greedy and unstable, trying to steal the company from the loyal brother who had saved it. The articles pointedly mentioned Ethan's race and neighborhood, playing on prejudice. Ethan's mother was harassed by reporters. Neighbors became distant. Ethan felt the weight of the attacks keenly, worrying about his mother, but William provided legal support to counter the defamation and reassured Ethan constantly, strengthening their unlikely bond. "We're family now, Ethan," William insisted. "We faced this together." They knew they were in a race against time. They had strong evidence of fraud, forgery, financial manipulation, and conspiracy to conceal Henry's whereabouts. But Victor was escalating, using public opinion and legal obstruction. They needed to consolidate their evidence and prepare for a final confrontation, likely in court, where they could expose Victor completely. The legal battle intensified. Clara Monroe successfully argued for expedited hearings based on the evidence of fraud and Victor's potential manipulation of a vulnerable adult. Victor's lawyers countered aggressively, attempting to discredit Henry's recovering memory, portray William as power-hungry, and paint Ethan as an unreliable opportunist. The forensic accountants, however, finally bypassed Victor's obstruction, uncovering definitive proof of systematic embezzlement and assets stripping totaling millions over the 3 years Victor held sole control. Marcus Thorne delivered his final piece, a sworn statement from a nurse at the out-of-state facility where Victor had initially hidden Henry. The nurse recalled Victor's specific instructions to keep Henry sedated and isolated, and his fury when Henry had moments of lucidity. She also confirmed Victor paid cash bonuses for staff discretion. This corroborated Henry's fragmented memory recorded by Ethan and painted a clear picture of unlawful imprisonment and neglect. Victor Langston was cornered, his legal defenses crumbling, his financial crimes exposed, the original will validated by experts. Desperation made him reckless. He attempted to intimidate William directly, showing up unannounced at his architecture firm, making veiled threats about William's career and personal safety. William, prepared by Thorne, recorded the entire exchange, capturing Victor's barely concealed menace. Victor then turned his attention back to Ethan, perhaps seeing him as the catalyst for his downfall. He knew a direct attack was too risky, but he sought leverage. He had his investigators dig into Ethan's mother's past, searching for any mistake, any vulnerability they could exploit to pressure Ethan or discredit the family further. They found nothing substantial, but the attempt itself was a violation, reported back to William and Ethan via Thorne's counter-surveillance. This final act of targeting Ethan's mother solidified their resolve. There could be no settlement, no quiet resolution. Victor needed to be stopped completely. Clara consolidated all the evidence, the original will, the journal, the accounting reports, the investigators' findings on the hidden facility and nurse's testimony, Ethan's recording of Henry, William's recording of Victor's threats into an ironclad case for both civil recovery of assets and criminal prosecution. Dark night. The night before the crucial court hearing where Clara planned to present the full case and petition for Victor's immediate removal from Langston Realty and potential criminal charges, Ethan felt the weight of everything. He sat in Mama's kitchen long after closing, staring at the empty alley where he first met Henry. Had he done the right thing? Had his simple act of kindness unleashed forces that could still hurt the people he cared about? He thought of his mom, William, Henry. He clutched the worn photo of Henry from the flyer he still carried. Truth will always win. He knew they had the truth on their side. He took a deep breath, his fear replaced by determination. He would face Victor alongside William and Henry, not just as a witness, but as part of their family. The courtroom was packed, buzzing with anticipation. Victor Langston sat flanked by his lawyers, attempting an air of confident indignation. William, Ethan, and Ethan's mother sat together, supported by Clara Monroe and Marcus Thorne. Henry Langston, deemed competent to testify by court-appointed experts despite lingering memory gaps, waited nearby with his medical attendant. Victor's lawyer opened, reiterating the claims against Ethan and William, portraying Victor as the victim of a conspiracy. Then Clara Monroe began her presentation. Calmly, methodically, she laid out the evidence. The discovery of the original will and Henry's journal. The forensic accounting reports detailing millions embezzled by Victor. The investigators' proof of Victor hiding Henry in an out-of-state facility and paying for his isolation. The nurse's corroborating testimony. She then played the audio recording Ethan had made Henry's own voice, hesitant but clear, recalling Victor's words at the hospital. He told me, "Stay away, William, not safe yet." The impact on the courtroom was palpable. Next, Clara played the recording William had made of Victor's threats against him. Victor leaped up, shouting objections, calling it entrapment, but the judge silenced him sternly. Finally, Clara called Henry Langston to the stand. Facing his brother, Henry's memory seemed to solidify under the pressure. When asked about Victor's actions after the accident, Henry looked directly at Victor and stated firmly, He told me William couldn't be trusted. He sent me away, said it was for my own good. He lied. Before Victor's lawyers could aggressively cross-examine Henry, Clara submitted the final piece, the arrest warrants she had coordinated with the district attorney based on the pre-filed evidence. As Henry stepped down, detectives entered the courtroom and approached Victor Langston. Victor Langston, the lead detective, announced formally, "You are under arrest for felony fraud, embezzlement, forgery, unlawful imprisonment, and conspiracy." Victor stared in stunned silence as he was handcuffed and led away, his empire built on deceit collapsing around him in the stark light of the courtroom. Ethan watched him go, feeling not triumph, but a quiet sense of justice finally served for his friend, Mr. Henry. William put a hand on Ethan's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. Victor Langston's conviction was swift and decisive, resulting in a long prison sentence and stripping him of all assets derived from his fraudulent control of Langston Realty. The company, now firmly under William's ethical leadership, with Henry retaining an honorary chairman emeritus title, began a period of recovery and reform. Henry Langston continued his slow but steady recovery, his memory gradually improving, though gaps remained. Most importantly, he was surrounded by the love of his son, William, and his surrogate grandson, Ethan. He found immense joy in getting to know Ethan, recognizing the innate kindness that had saved him. He officially established the Ethan's Table Foundation, generously endowing it to provide meals, shelter assistance, and job training programs for Chicago's homeless population, with a special focus on youth outreach. Mama's Kitchen, expanded and renovated courtesy of the foundation, became a vibrant community hub. Ethan's life, while forever changed, remained grounded. He finished high school with honors, his future secured by a college fund established by Henry. He remained close to William, who became like an older brother, offering guidance and support. He continued to visit Henry regularly, sharing stories, listening, their bond unbreakable. While grateful for the opportunities now available, Ethan never forgot the lessons learned in his neighborhood and behind the counter at Mama's Kitchen, the importance of compassion, integrity, and sharing what you have. His mother, cleared of the vicious rumors, watched her son navigate his new reality with pride. The Langston family, once distant figures of wealth, became simply William and Mr. Henry, part of their extended community. The final scene finds Ethan, now a confident young man heading off to college, sharing one last meal with Henry and William at Mama's Kitchen. Henry raises a glass of iced tea. To Ethan, he says, his eyes clear and filled with affection, who offered bread to a stranger and reminded a family what truly matters. Ethan smiles, warmth spreading through him. He hadn't sought reward, only offered kindness. But in doing so, he hadn't just saved a millionaire. He'd helped restore a family, exposed a criminal, and found an unexpected place for himself at their table.